Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time. Hello and welcome to another Magic Arena gameplay video. Today we're taking a look at a Muldrotha midrange deck that's looking to get to the late game and cast a Muldrotha the Gravetide, 6 mana for a 6/6 legendary creature that says during each of your turns you may play up to one permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard, and those include lands, creatures, planeswalkers, artifacts, enchantments, and most of our deck, as you'll see, is permanents, so we've got very few instants and sorceries, which means that if we get to untap with a Muldrotha, we can very quickly take over the game by overwhelming our opponent in card advantage. So let's take a look at our entire list, starting out with our 1-drops, where we have 3 copies of Deadweight as a nice enchantment-based removal spell, giving a creature -2/-2, which means that we also get to return it with Muldrotha from our graveyard for just 1 mana, and potentially kill another creature. Then we have 3 copies of Dusk Legion Zealot at 2 mana for a 1/1 that loses 1 life and draws a card when it enters the battlefield, so helps us get to our more powerful cards, and also a nice one to return from the graveyard. And our next card is very similar, Merfolk Branchwalker, 2 mana 2/1 that explores when it enters the battlefield, so helps us hit our land drops so we can consistently get to our 5 and 6 mana spells. We also have 1 copy of Find Finality as one of the few non-permanent cards in our deck, but both halves are very useful. Find returning 2 creatures and Finality being a sweeper effect can be very important in some matchups. Then we have 2 copies of Midnight Reaper, can potentially draw some more cards, since most of our deck is creatures that will often end up trading or chump blocking, so being able to draw more cards with a Midnight Reaper is useful. Then we also have 2 copies of Playcrafter, which is quite synergistic in our deck. 3 mana 3/2 creature, when it enters the battlefield, each player has to sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, and each player who can't has to discard a card. So Playcrafter plays very well with some of our cheap creatures like Dusk Legion Zealot and Branchwalker that we don't mind sacrificing. Also plays well with Midnight Reaper being in play, drawing us extra cards. And if our opponent is playing very few key creatures or planeswalkers, Playcrafter is excellent. Plus being able to loop Playcrafter with a Muldrotha in play means that we can just sacrifice Playcrafter to its own ability to edict our opponent every turn, essentially. Then we also have 4 copies of Elvish Rejuvenator as another nice ramp creature. When it enters the battlefield, we can take a look at the top 5 cards and reveal a land from among those to put into play. So it ramps us from 3 mana to 5 mana potentially, where we have a lot of powerful cards. And the 1/1 body is also very useful to sacrifice to certain effects. Then we have 1 Thrashing Brontodon as a disenchant effect in the main deck that we can also sacrifice and return from the graveyard. 3 mana for a 3/4 is also a pretty decent body, and then just 1 mana to be able to sacrifice Brontodon to destroy an artifact or enchantment, and we've got more copies in the sideboard. And then we have 3 copies of Ravenous Chupacabra as our main spot removal spell to deal with opposing creatures, and can also easily return it from the graveyard. We have 2 copies of Vraska Golgari Queen as our first planeswalker, and all her different modes are useful. Being able to sacrifice permanents to draw cards is useful, since we have all these small expendable creatures we don't mind sacrificing. The -3 destroying a non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less can act as a removal spell as well, and then the ultimate ability is also game-winning with all our small expendable creatures that can attack for lethal. Then at 5 mana we've got 2 copies of the Eldest Reborn as a powerful removal spell, making the opponent first sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, then on the 2nd chapter making them discard a card, and on the 3rd chapter returning a creature or planeswalker from any graveyard to the battlefield under our control. And if we can, for example, return a Muldrotha from the graveyard with the 3rd chapter of Eldest Reborn, we will still have all our mana untapped to potentially return cards from our graveyard. Then we also have 2 copies of Vivian Reed as another planeswalker, and her +1 ability letting us gain card advantage by finding more creatures, the -3 being able to destroy artifacts, enchantments, or flying creatures, and then the ultimate also being game winning. And then we also have a 1-off spicy copy of Underrealm Lich, providing a bit more card selection and also preventing us from decking ourselves, and being able to make the Underrealm Lich indestructible is also useful in the face of potential sweeper effects like Cleansing Nova. And then we also have a 1-off Tatiova, Benthic Druid, which lets us draw a card and gain a life whenever land enters the battlefield under our control, which also plays pretty nicely with our Evolving Wilds, which will trigger Tatiova twice with just 1 land. And then once we start returning lands from the graveyard with Muldrotha, that also plays pretty well with Tatiova. And then at 6 mana we've got 1 copy of Vraska Relic Seeker as an additional win condition that can make a bunch of pirate tokens, can also destroy opposing creatures, artifacts, or enchantments. And then we've got our 3 copies of Muldrotha. And then taking a look at our mana base, our only spicy land here is 1 copy of Memorial to Folly, which can also reanimate creatures from the graveyard back to our hand. And then we've got a few basic lands, 1 island, 2 swamps, and 3 forests to go alongside our 4 copies of Evolving Wilds, which is also a nice land to return from the graveyard with Muldrotha. And then we've got a bunch of dual lands, 2 Drowned Catacombs, 2 Watery Graves counting as both an island and a swamp, 4 Overgrown Tombs counting as both a swamp and forest, then 4 Woodland Cemeteries and 2 Hinterland Harbors. Then going over the sideboard, we have an additional copy of Find Finality when we need a big sweeper effect, and the Find Half can also be useful in the grindy matchups. We've got 2 Sorcerer Spyglass, mainly to shut down opposing planeswalkers, Golden Demise as a cheap sweeper effect against a low curve go wide creature decks, another Playcrafter when we need an answer to single creatures or planeswalkers. We've got 2 copies of Deathgorge Scavenger, which can also be useful in the more aggressive matchups where gaining life is useful, or against decks that rely on their graveyard. We've got 2 additional copies of Thrashing Brontodon as a disenchant effect, 2 Ritual of Soot as another sweeper effect against low curve creature decks, then 2 copies of Vraska's Contempt to exile creatures or planeswalkers, especially useful against recursive creatures like Rekindling Phoenix, and then 1 copy of Carnage Tyrant that we can also bring in against control decks as an uncounterable threat with Hexproof. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the play. And how about this one? Yeah, having 2 6-drops and a Find Finality is not ideal, but the Branchwalker and the Rejuvenator can help us hit land drops, so I think we can keep. Alright, let's lead with our forest. It's gonna be a turn 1 island. Alright, let's hope to find a land with our Branchwalker here. Opponent with an opt. Puts the card on the bottom. And land is good here. Also blue mana for when we get to 6 mana. So just wanna keep hitting our land drops here. Blue-red with discoveries, for opponent probably on the Drake deck here. Which can be somewhat tough since we don't have a ton of answers to flying creatures, especially recursive Arclight Phoenix. But I think we have a decent chance. And let's get another land in play here. Alright. Don't have a 5-drop sadly that we can play next turn, but just play another Rejuvenator, getting to 6 mana ahead of schedule is good enough. And it's not like the Drake deck is going to have plenty of answers to a 6/6 Muldrotha. So let's attack for 3. Opponent with a radical idea, sure. And we'll play another Rejuvenator. And oof, we missed. Always feels bad. You're not very likely to miss with a Rejuvenator, so it always feels bad when you do. Another card we considered for the 3 mana slot was District Guide. Just because the 2/2 body is more relevant, District Guide can never miss. But of course District Guide doesn't ramp you, so alright, picked up a Vivian, which is nice. But we can also just play a Vraska here, which might just be better. It's a bit more mana efficient. We get a treasure token by using the -3 ability here. So let's get Vraska in play. And then we'll have Vivian for a future flying creature.
Make way for your captain.
And in the meantime we keep pressuring them with our smaller creatures here. Don't have anything in the graveyard yet for Muldrotha, but our planeswalkers are likely to end up there. So let's see if our opponent manages to discard an Arclight Phoenix and get it back this turn to kill our Vraska. Lava Coil on Branchwalker, sure. And they jumpstart Radical Idea, discarding Arclight Phoenix. So that's gonna finish off Vraska. And then next turn we have to decide if we wanna spend some time with Vivian dealing with the Phoenix, or if we just play Muldrotha, which is probably better. Otherwise, if we Vivian minus on Phoenix, they can finish off Vivian with a shock. And getting a 6/6 in play to pressure their life totals a lot better. No Evolving Wilds in the graveyard to get back either, so this is going to be a pretty sad Muldrotha to begin with, but we'll be able to get back a Vraska before too long, which is still pretty good. Pass a turn. And 6/6 our opponent will have to use multiple burn spells for if they want to deal with it. Lava Coil plus Shock will do it. And there's Enigma Drake, that's fine. So that's where Vivian comes in handy, or we can just return Vraska and minus again. Right, Phoenix gets in for 3. Yeah, I think we're just gonna replay Vraska here. And then kill the Drake, which is the scariest card. And get in for 8, put them to 1. And it's gonna take something special for them to kill us. We're actually 1 mana off just playing a Vivian here as well. Alright, Crackling Drake. They can maximize velocity it, so that's 8 damage plus 3 from the Phoenix coming in, so if they have a bunch of shocks, we're just dead. Alright, Radical Idea, so that's gonna put Drake up to 8 power, so they've got 11 with maximized velocity 12 coming in, so that's not good enough here. Alright, well, close game. We were definitely favored going late with our Muldrotha engine, but the Drake deck can always steal a game out of nowhere. Alright, so for game 2, what do we want? Vraska's Contempt is a card I don't mind as just a way to gain a bit of life. Can exile a Murmuring Mystic as well if they bring that in out of the sideboard. And of course also exiles the Arclight Phoenix, which is nice. And then Deathcore Scavenger, exiling some cards from their graveyard is useful, both creatures and non-creature spells. Not too much we really want for this matchup. Our main deck is set up pretty well already. Playcrafter is a card we can consider as well, just as a 3-mana removal spell for creatures. If they bring in something like Niv Mizzet, this is great too. Of course, it does have a drawback if your opponent is on the Murmuring Mystic plan out of the sideboard, making a bunch of bird tokens. Then Playcrafter goes down in value. I could see Brontodon coming out. There's not too many artifacts or enchantments we need to deal with in this matchup. I could see cutting Midnight Reaper, since the removal is also Lava Coil, which exiles a Reaper without generating any value, and losing a bit of life in this matchup can be detrimental. So I could see cutting the Reaper, and then I think I'll cut a Find Finality here. Since we don't really need a 6-mana sweeper effect in this matchup, this seems okay. Alright, this hand's nothing special. Evolving Wilds can get a swamp, so we still need second black source for Chupacabra, but the Branch Walkers are somewhat likely to get there, so pretty tame hand, but I think still keepable. Alright, Zealot's good, so we'll just get a swamp here. And then next turn we can decide between Branch Walker and Dusk Legion Zealot. Turn to Electromancer, which is why we, of course, kept in all the deadweights. Let's just play a Branch Walker, matches up a bit better against the Electromancer. Finds a land, still no second black source. So that's what we'll be looking for. Enigma Drake. But our opponent is down to 3 cards in hand, and there's a Playcrafter, which is pretty strong. I don't mind playing a Playcrafter here, since either killing Electromancer or Drake is fine. Could attack first with a Branch Walker, opponent's gonna block with Enigma Drake anyway, but I guess we might as well try. Opponent takes it, alright, so we got 2 free damage in. I guess had they blocked with Enigma Drake, we could have potentially finished off the Drake with a deadweight. And our opponent does indeed sack the Drake, valuing their Electromancer in play. Could indicate that they have an Arclight Phoenix in hand that they want to return. Double Radical Idea, discarding Phoenix. Alright. So this is where the Vraska's Contempt would be better than a Chupacabra. And Shock kills Playcrafter. Alright, so our opponent had a good turn here. But they are down to 2 cards in hand, so we can potentially grind them out. Oof, never mind. Chart a course, refueling them. So we'll have to pay 2 life to play the Overgrown Tomb, and I think we kill the Electromancer instead of the Phoenix just to slow them down a bit. Since of course if they have a bunch of spells they can just return the Phoenix, and then killing it here doesn't accomplish much. I think we'll Chupacabra the Electromancer. We could have also opted to go Zealot plus Branch Walker, but by playing the Chupacabra now, the Eldest Reborn next turn is going to be even more impactful. So Phoenix puts us to 10. And our opponent does nothing. Another Chupacabra is not bad. But I think I'm gonna go with the Eldest Reborn here. Opponent could have brought in some counter spells out of the sideboard potentially. Alright, Disdainful Stroke to counter it. Fair enough. And a Crackling Drake, which we will try and kill with our Chupacabra. Opponent could also be holding a Dive Down to protect it, but there's not much we can do about that one. Untapped Steam Vents might indicate Char of Course here. Nope. Maybe another Disdainful Stroke, which would be unfortunate, since that could counter the Chupacabra. But yeah, we're kind of forced to do it here, otherwise we're dead. So I guess we can play our land first. And is it a second Disdainful Stroke? It's not. Alright, so we get to kill the Drake. Attack for 2, play a Branchwalker here, I think. And Deadweight's probably good enough. Let's see for dead. Discovery, that's fine. So next turn we can kill the Phoenix, get in for 7, add another Branchwalker and Zealot to the board. We might not play the Zealots just to not lose the 1 life. Did they put a Phoenix in the graveyard? They did not. That's good. But we are dead to Double Shock. Alright, 7-powered Enigma Drake is an issue as well. Alright, so how do we sequence things? We could of course attack, and if our opponent blocks we can finish off the Drake with the Deadweight, so they're probably taking 7. The problem is we only have 2 black mana, so we can't top deck another Chupacabra or a Vraska's Contempt. I guess Playcrafter could do it. Never mind, since we also need to Deadweight the Phoenix, so I'm not sure if we have any outs here. I guess we'll start by attacking, see if our opponent blocks. Opponent takes it down to 3. Yeah, I don't think we can win if we play Zealots, given that we only have 1 black source remaining. But the Branchwalker also doesn't help, so I guess we'll find out. Finds a Watery Grave. Yeah, it's not gonna cut it here. Play a Branchwalker. So had we played Branchwalker first, we also would have just drawn 2 lands here. Alright, GG's. So pretty close game 2 here as well. So do we want to reconfigure anything? I think we're still okay as is. Didn't see any Murmuring Mystics out of their sideboard, which is good to know. Yeah, I think I still like our plan for the most part here. That Disdainful Stroke on the Eldest Reborn was definitely pretty impactful, but Disdainful Stroke is going to be good against us no matter what. Can potentially go a bit lower on the curve by bringing in Brontodons just to beat down with, and shave a few expensive cards. But I think we just hope that they have to tap out at the wrong time so we can resolve them. And especially now that we're on the play, we're more likely to be able to play a Vivian after they tap out for a 4-mana Drake, which is one of our winning plays. This hand's not very good, but I'm tempted to still keep it. Deadweight gives us a bit of cheap interaction against Electromancer or Phoenix, and Tatyova gaining life and drawing extra cards is nice, of course hoping to draw some early action in between here. We'll try. Opponent down to 6. Play tapped Overgrown Tomb. Alright, Evolving Wilds we potentially want to keep until turn 6 so we can go Tatyova plus Evolving Wilds. So I think I'm fine just playing a tapped Overgrown Tomb for now. So what would be our best draw here? I guess Elvish Rejuvenator would be pretty high up on our list. Well, there we go. Let's play it. And that's potentially gonna let us play Tatyova next turn. Opponent with another Opt. And find a Woodland Cemetery. I guess our best draw would be a Vivian Reed off the top, or if our opponent plays a creature, Eldest Reborn. It's gonna be Enigma Drake and Chupacabra. Alright, well, we're definitely doing it here. can Chupacabra the Drake, get in for 1, and then next turn go Tatyova Evolving Wilds, draw 2 cards, gain 2 life. And we still have a deadweight as cheap interaction. Opponent is keeping up 4 mana, so they could have a Disdainful Stroke. But both our expensive cards are quite good here. Opponent with a shock on the Chupacabra. We could also do nothing here, but I think we just want to play 2 expensive cards and hope that one of them sticks. Question is, which one would we rather have countered and which one would we rather resolve? I think I'm gonna play the Tatyova here. Opponent counters it, and I will get rid of the Evolving Wilds. Might as well grab an island. Alright. And if our opponent taps out for a Drake, we can just Vivian it. Muldrotha's good too. Yeah, I guess Muldrotha's better, and then next turn we can return Tatyova plus Evolving Wilds in the same turn. Not sure which is better. If we Vivian minus, let's say they have a shock for Vivian and then Disdainful Stroke for Muldrotha, we're in a worse spot. Whereas if we just have a Muldrotha in play, we're okay if they counter our Planeswalkers, and a 20 life, taking a hit from Enigma Drake is probably fine. So sure, let's play Muldrotha. And then we get to play Evolving Wilds right away for value. And we'll get a forest. No attacks. So I've got some interesting options next turn. It's gonna be Shock plus Lava Coil on Muldrotha. It's too bad. Beacon Bolt instead. Alright, I mean, still means that Muldrotha is not exiled, so if we ever find an Eldest Reborn, we can potentially get it back. But for now we'll be forced to Vivian. So our opponent did have the shocks. Had we gone Vivian minus, they would have killed the Vivian. But who knows if they have another counterspell in hand. Let's get in for 1. Say go. So our opponent's got 2 cards in hand, Beacon Bolt in the graveyard. Leads with a Radical Idea. Another one. And opponent says go, so we get to plus Vivian, find more action. And Underwhelm Lich looks pretty appealing here. So we'll play that. And then play Branchwalker. And we can put that in the graveyard. Attack for 1. Alright, so the Lich is gonna give us card selection, also fuel the graveyard if we ever find another Muldrotha. Vivian also providing card advantage here, so we're definitely gonna win the late game. Question is, can our opponent maybe string together a Drake plus maximize velocity to kill us out of nowhere? We'll find out. Discovery. Opponent looking for Arclight Phoenix at this point. Still have our deadweight from our opening hand that we didn't have to use yet. And another Radical Idea. Do they have any Phoenix to return? One of them. Alright, it's too bad, since that's gonna kill Vivian here. But it's still gonna leave us with our Underwhelm Lich. That can potentially find another powerful threat here. And our opponent is gonna be taking 8 damage as well, so it's a 2-turn clock.
I'm a survivor.
And another Vivian will do. So we can Vivian and then deadweight the Phoenix and then plus Vivian. So we can plus first. And I guess we'll grab Rejuvenator, which we can play right now. Deadweight Phoenix. Attack for 8. And get a Memorial, which is nice, since that can return Muldrotha potentially, but the game's probably going to be decided before that's relevant. And of course, looping Memorial with Muldrotha in play is also pretty sweet. And our opponent packs it in. Alright, so some pretty close games here against the blue-red Drake deck, but we came out on top. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. And this hand seems fine. Good 2-drop. Turn 4 Chupacabra, turn 5 Tatyova, or we could wait and maybe combine it with Evolving Wilds if we want to draw 2 cards right away. So interesting turn 1 here. We could just play Evolving Wilds, get it out of the way. That's probably better. Don't need to get too greedy with Tatyova. Just get a forest for now. Opponent on blue-black. Turn 2 Dusk Legion Zealots, nice. Could have also played a Branch Walker there, I suppose. Hits a little bit harder if opponent's on a more controlling deck. Opponent's got their own Dusk Legion Zealots. Alright, let's get in for one. Opponent trades, that's good. Play another Branch Walker. And do we want to keep a Playcrafter? It's not the worst, but we already have a Chupacabra to answer a creature, so I think we can put that in the graveyard. And then we'll play a tapped Shockland here. Alright, Midnight Reaper we can kill with our Chupacabra, so that lines up well. So our opponent appears to be on a blue-black creature-based deck, which is interesting. Don't see those too often. Seeker Squire. And a Playcrafter. Alright, so we can attack. And I think we want to wait on Tatyova until we can play land in the same turn, and especially now with Evolving Wilds. That seems worth it. Of course, we could run into a discard spell or a counter spell next turn, but I think it's worth it. Let's Playcrafter, sacking Chupacabra. And play tap land. And then hope that we get to stick Tatyova next turn. Opponent's got their own Playcrafter. What would we rather sacrifice here? Given that we already have a Playcrafter in graveyard, probably Branch Walker. And a Seeker Squire. Alright, perfect. Get to resolve Tatyova. And don't really want to attack with our Playcrafter since we know there's another one incoming, which will otherwise make us sacrifice Tatyova. So Evolving Wilds, draw a card. And we'll sack right away here. Getting a Swamp. And draw another card. Alright. So we got our value from Tatyova, which is nice. Eldest Reborn, not a bad pickup. Playcrafter, sacking Playcrafter. And a duplicate, copying Playcrafter. Alright, I see. It's pretty effective here. Ooh, but a Muldrotha. So if we play Muldrotha, sure we get to play Evolving Wilds from the graveyard, but that doesn't accomplish a whole lot. I would rather just Eldest Reborn them here. Otherwise I can just copy their Playcrafter once again, making us sack Muldrotha. And then next turn we can go Muldrotha, replay a 2-drop from the graveyard. Gives us a bit of insurance against another sacrifice effect from the opponent. Alright, discards another duplicate. So yeah, we probably want to play an untapped land from hand instead of Evolving Wilds, just so we can play a 2-drop as well. So let's do that. Play Muldrotha. And then cast a creature. Between Branch Walker and Zealot, I think we prefer the Zealot just to draw a card guaranteed. Alright, another backup Muldrotha is good. So don't mind our position here. A Dream Eater, alright, it's pretty effective here too. Let's see what they want to bounce. Yeah, if they bounce Muldrotha, they can kind of tempo us out a little bit here. Just by never letting us get back Eldest Reborn from the graveyard. So that's our major concern at the moment. And they can also just bounce the Eldest Reborn here with another duplicate. But I guess we can go Muldrotha into Playcrafter here, make them sack one of their flyers. Graveyard Marshal. Alright. So that can also start making some zombies, and our opponent decides to keep up mana. I think I like Chupacabra killing Dream Eater as the most offensive play here. I'm a bit surprised our opponent didn't go for another duplicate on Dream Eater there. But maybe they wanted to save the last card in their hand. Opponent makes a zombie. And then I think we just play a land out of our hands, play a Playcrafter. Could also play Midnight Reaper. But reducing their board seems like our primary concern at the moment. So we'll play a creature. And it's going to be a Playcrafter. Sacking Chupacabra, which we can then also return next turn potentially. No attacks. Opponent has a Chupacabra, which is going to prevent us from getting back stuff from the graveyard next turn. But we have another Muldrotha in hand, so could be worse. Let's see if our opponent copies the Chupacabra. They do. It's our opponent with a pretty interesting blue-black quasi-duplicate deck. Alright, so we don't have enough mana to go Muldrotha into Eldest Reborn. And our opponent has 2 Chupacabras, which means that they will still get to copy Chupacabra killing Muldrotha next turn. So we could also decide to be patient, wait until we can go Muldrotha into Eldest Reborn, so we ensure that we eventually get back Muldrotha from the graveyard. Could go just Chupacabra killing Graveyard Marshal, and then play Midnight Reaper as well. It's probably fine. And then I think I'm okay attacking with the Zealot, just to draw a card with the Reaper. Alright. Play that tapped. Say go. And then next turn we can go Muldrotha into Eldest Reborn or Muldrotha into Tatyova to make sure we keep drawing more cards. Alright, so do we want to block the real Chupacabra or the copy? Is there a reason to do one over the other? Not sure. I think we'll block the copy. Alright, so now it's time to go Muldrotha. And then don't have an untapped land in the graveyard, so we want to play one from hand. And then cast an enchantment. Eldest Reborn. So now even if they find a way to kill Muldrotha, we'll get Muldrotha back in a turn or two. But of course if they don't find an answer to Muldrotha, we'll very quickly take over the game. Alright, Vampire Sovereign. That's fine. Alright, so I think we wanna get back at Tatyova to start gaining a bit of life. Although then we can't Chupacabra the Vampire Sovereign, but it's probably okay to let them have it for a turn. And then we can either play an untapped land from hand, or we can play Evolving Wilds from the graveyard. I think we'll go with the Evolving Wilds. Draw 2 cards. And alright, Vraska's perfect here. We'll kill the Sovereign. And our opponent packs it in. Too much value here. Alright, so very interesting matchup. A blue-black quasi-duplicate. It's all about grinding card advantage in some way or another. So Deathgorge Scavenger seems great at exiling their duplicates and creatures from the graveyard. I guess Vraska's Contempt could be okay, just as more removal. Not sure how good Playcrafter is going to be since they have so many expendable creatures. I don't think we love Playcrafter. There's no hexproof creature we need to hit with it. Deadweight seems okay as cheap removal for Chupacabras before they can copy them. Ritual of Soot does also destroy tokens. It's just not very good if they don't have a bunch of tokens and 2-drops in play. So I don't love the Ritual here. So the only consideration here I think is Vraska's Contempt. But I'm not sure if there's anything we want to cut for it. I guess we can cut a Brontodon. Yeah, basically any creature that doesn't have an enters the battlefield ability has to go. Or provides card advantage in some way. So we can make room for 1 Contempt. Find Finality could also be a little bit too slow, but the sweeper effect can be useful at maybe catching us back up if our opponent has a white board and most of their creatures die to it. So 1 Find Finality is probably okay. Yeah, I think we'll submit this. Sadly, can't keep a 1-lander, even with all these 2-drops and 3-drops that find more lands. Alright, another 1-lander, that's rough. Yeah, we'll have to go to 5. Alright, we'll keep this. And we'll keep Rejuvenator. Guess we'll fetch an island right now. Alright, so mulliganing not the best, but our hand is functional at least. Midnight Reaper, good target for Vraska's Contempt as well. And find a Memorial, that's a good one. And then next turn we can Chupacabra or Contempt. Opponent attacks, we'll take 4. And another Zealot. Let's play Tap Tomb, and I think we just say go, and the plan is to Contempt Midnight Reaper. Might as well let them untap in case they go for a quasi-duplicate. And our opponent had counterspell mana up during our turn as well, so playing around counterspells wasn't really possible here. And then we could trade. For opponent captain or Playcrafters, trading is maybe not the best idea, but it does make it so if they have another Midnight Reaper, trading is a bit better. I think we'll probably trade here, given that we have a Chupacabra coming up anyway. That also gives us a bit of insurance against another sacrifice effect. So this lines up pretty well for us. Eldest Reborn is also pretty good, but I think we just need to kill the flyer so we don't take too much damage. Yeah, the Eldest Reborn is also a bit hit or miss against our opponent. But it's also just a 3-for-1, even though it's a slow way to do it. Throw in Chupacabra. So now might be a good window to play our Eldest Reborn, since playing Muldrotha into Chupacabra that they can duplicate is not the best. So let's just play Eldest Reborn here. And the Scavenger can also start exiling some stuff. Chart, of course, to draw 2. Alright. And a Graveyard Marshal. Alright. Opponent has to discard. Discards a duplicate, which we can exile with the Scavenger. If we play Muldrotha, we can play Evolving Wilds, but then Muldrotha dies to this copying Chupacabra, so that's probably not great. So let's just Scavenger and exile the duplicates. And say go. Opponent maybe with a cast down. Nope, Necrotic Wound. Alright, exiles a Scavenger, it's too bad. So yeah, we could easily die to Graveyard Marshal beatdown here. If our opponent has another answer for Muldrotha in hand. Vivian the pickup. So I think we'll go with the Chupacabra here. Yeah, we don't want to be getting back the opponent's creatures since they can just exile them with a Graveyard Marshal. And now we'll Chupacabra, killing the Marshal. And then play Muldrotha to play defense. Get back Evolving Wilds from the graveyard. Alright, so this is a close one. But if they can't kill Muldrotha on the spot, then we might be okay. Another Chupacabra. Alright, so we're going down to 1 at least here. And a Rejuvenator. Yeah, I don't see us coming back from this. We can return something with Memorial, but then we'll only have 3 mana remaining, which is not good enough. Vivian doesn't quite cut it here either. So I guess we'll Muldrotha and make her opponent do it. But we should be dead if our opponent attacks with everyone. Alright, so going into the late game we had some nice tools, but our opponent was able to apply just enough pressure and punish our mulligan to 5. So overall I don't mind our position in the matchup. I think it's a pretty even back and forth for the most part, but then we have the trump card in Muldrotha, which the opponent doesn't have. I could see bringing in the second Contempt just to have a bit more removal, so we don't fall too far behind if our opponent starts bouncing stuff with Dream Eater to try and tempo us out. Lich is nice since it survives Chupacabra, does die to Necrotic Wound, which our opponent showed us. Yeah, let's try Contempt over Underrealm Lich, just because it lines up a bit poorly against Necrotic Wound. And I think Find Finality is still okay, just as a catch-up mechanism. Alright, we'll try this. Would like to be on the play. Got another one-lander, it's too bad. Alright, I think we have to keep this one-lander and hope to scry into a land here on turn 2. And then we have Branchwalker and Rejuvenator. Definitely got a bit unlucky in the second and third game here with our opening hands. We are playing 25 lands, so it's not like we're getting greedy just because we have a few Explorer creatures. Alright, Evolving Wilds, so we're a turn behind and can't play our 2-drop. But it could be worse. Could have also used a Deadweight there on the Zealot, but I think we want to hang on to it to kill something a bit more impactful like a Midnight Reaper. So I think, let's see, we could get a Swamp, so we have double black for sure. We won't be needing blue mana anytime soon, so I think that's okay. Branchwalker, alright, so we could play a Branchwalker, hope to find an untapped land for Deadweight, or we could just Deadweight the Reaper right now. I think we do kind of have to play the Branchwalker here, otherwise we're just gonna fall further and further behind. That can go. And then we're fine trading Branchwalker for the Midnight Reaper. Playcrafter is not gonna give us a choice, so that's too bad. Alright, that's better. So probably want to Deadweight the Reaper, play Branchwalker. I think we just want to hit land drops naturally here. Already have a Rejuvenator in hand. So we had kind of a rough start here, but we might be able to draw out of it. Opponent just has a few extra cards in hand that we have to fight through. They haven't found any blue mana yet, so that's the saving grace here. Sell it. And Necrotic Wounds, exiling Branchwalker. And the lands, so now we can either Rejuvenator or Chupacabra, I think. I like Chupacabra killing Playcrafter for now. Make sure we don't take too much damage for the time being. Another Playcrafter. And a Vraska's Contempt. This turn's probably acceptable to play Midnight Reaper if they have another Necrotic Wound. That would be awkward. Or we could just Rejuvenate her to develop our mana, but there's nothing we really need to ramp into that we have in hand currently. So I think I like Reaper here. They don't seem to be holding a Necrotic Wound. So if they just Chupacabra, at least we get to draw a card. It's a cast down. And a Branchwalker. And a Marshal as well. Alright, so now we probably have to Chupacabra killing Marshal. Midnight Reaper, which we can Contempt. So do we trade here? I think we take it. And then just pass a turn. And if they attack again, we can Contempt the Reaper. Opponent finally finds blue mana, but duplicate is double blue. Alright, so a lot of back and forth here. Chart of course. Yep. Alright. So we probably want to start with Rejuvenator. And then I think we Branchwalker over Zealots. And that's probably good enough. Can start working on the opponent's graveyard, gain a bit of life back, and we can play it alongside the Dusk Legion Zealot. Another cast down on Branchwalker. And a Sovereign plays well into our Eldest Reborn. Get in for one. There's a second blue source and another Sovereign. Alright, this starts adding up. Opponent discards Immortal Sun. So yeah, we're probably dead here. Like if we play a Zealot, we could top deck into a removal spell for the Sovereign, which would be the best case scenario. Because if our opponent's holding a duplicate, which is pretty likely, then they can just copy the Sovereign and kill us with a drain effect. Because even if we gain 2 with the Scavenger, then an attack and a drain for 3 is going to kill us. So I think that means we need to get lucky with the Zealot here, since the Scavenger's not going to cut it, even though we could gain 2 life. So, of course, if we play the Zealot and our opponent happens to not have a duplicate, we're going to look a bit silly since we could have survived another turn with the Scavenger, gaining us 2 life. But it just seems so likely that they're holding a duplicate given how the game progressed. So yeah, let's play a Zealot. Find a Muldrotha. It's not going to cut it here. Alright, so we're dead. Well, it was a close game. But the mulligans in the second and third game didn't help. Could have also considered fetching first with the Evolving Wilds to maybe increase our chances slightly of finding something relevant here, but yeah, our opponent did have a duplicate here. So playing the Zealot was definitely the right play. Only question was whether or not we should fetch first with Evolving Wilds. Alright, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. And this hand seems acceptable. And we'll grab... could be a forest for Brontodon, could be a swamp for Chupacabra. Against a blue-black deck, Brontodon's probably going to be more important. Alright. Land is good. So we're hitting our land drops. Next turn we can play Rejuvenator, which sets up turn 4 Tatyova potentially. And our opponent has a Thought Erasure. Alright, so they can punch a hole in our plan. But we've got 2 3-drops, so they're probably going to go with our Tatyova instead here. Yep. Alright, let's attack. And I think I like playing Rejuvenator here. Even though Brontodon applies a bit more pressure, Rejuvenator gets us immediate value in case of a removal spell. Discovery, sure. And Vraska is a nice pickup. So get in for 3. And then we can Vraska, sacking Rejuvenator here, I think. And might as well fetch first. Thin out the deck a bit. Could have also done it in our upkeep before taking a draw step. Alright. Fine Finality can potentially be pretty good here. Another Thought Erasure. Takes Fine Finality. Alright, more Chupacabras, not ideal. So, interesting here whether or not we would like to sacrifice a land with Vraska. I think sacking a land's probably okay for now.
Everyone is expendable, except me.
And find Memorial. And we'll play Brontodon. Alright. So we've got answers for a potential Doom Whisper. It's gonna be a Ritual of Soot, that's fine. Could have been a reason to play Chupacabra since that can survive a Ritual, but I think we'll be okay. So now a Vraska's Contempt on Vraska is the thing we're most worried about. Could also sacrifice Memorial getting back Tatyova, but won't be able to play Tatyova this turn. So I think our play is probably going to be to float some mana, sacrifice a land, see what we draw, and then go from there. Find a Zealots, which is the play here over Chupacabra for now, but we might still play Chupacabra anyway. Probably should not have tapped our green mana in case we drew into a double green card, but I guess Brontodon's one of our few double green cards in our deck, so it's probably fine. Rejuvenator, nice pickup. And find a land. And play a tapped Warrigrave. Alright, so we've got 2 creatures for Vraska's ultimate. If they contempt Vraska, then I guess that's not great for us, so that's a major concern here. 5 mana. It's gonna be Dispersal. Alright, that resets our Vraska, but at least doesn't answer it permanently. And I guess we'll discard Chupacabra for now. Let's attack for 2. Play Vraska. Sacking a creature. And play a tap land. Say go. So we're getting pretty close to sacking Memorial and then maybe replaying Tatyova in the same turn. But for now we're happy sitting on our Vraska. Opponent could also have a Dream Eater here to ambush our Rejuvenator, but then we can kill it with a Chupacabra. They probably also have counterspell mana available now. Midnight Reaper's not bad. Guess we'll bait with Rejuvenator. And then we could just say go, and then sacrifice Memorial end of turn. Or we could just play a Reaper here as well. I kind of like sacking Memorial end of turn. And then the question is, do we play a land or not? Since if they make us discard, we want to have a land in hand to play after we get back Tatyova. I think we'll just say go. Opponent does nothing. Sack Memorial. Get back Tatyova. Untap, attack for 1. And then we can play Tatyova, they probably counter it, and then we go Reaper, sack Rejuvenator, draw a card with Vraska. Instead they cast down our creature, which of course cast down can't kill Tatyova, so they're very likely to have a counterspell for Tatyova, so we could also just play the Reaper first, but then we don't get immediate value from Tatyova since we won't be able to follow up with a land. So I guess it's fine to play Tatyova first, get it countered, then go land Reaper. It's gonna be a sabotage. And then we can sack a land to Vraska. Alright. So Vraska's ultimating next turn. Opponent with a cast down on the Reaper. That's fine. So I think we're fine to ultimates. And then we could play Muldrotha. I guess we still get to play Branchwalker regardless, so that's probably fine. Muldrotha resolves, we get to play a land from the graveyard. Could also go for Memorial, but I think we want to have 2 creatures in play. So we'll get the Swamp, so we can play Branchwalker. So the Vraska emblem is more threatening. And that's probably fine. Alright. So our opponent needs 2 removal spells here, but they don't have it. Alright. So against the blue-black control, how do we want to sideboard? Definitely don't need our deadweights. And then we can definitely shave on the number of Chupacabras. Could even take them out altogether. And Playcrafter's also not at its best here. So those are the weaker cards in the matchup, I think. What can we bring in? Scavenger as an extra threat that can get rid of some graveyard cards could be somewhat useful, although not exciting. And then Brontodon could also be an extra threat, but we don't want too many 3-drops here. Still want somewhat of a curve. So this is how our curve looks like after sideboard. So yeah, we still need to bring in 6 cards. Carnage Tyrant definitely wants to come in. Could see adding another Find Finality just as a grindy 2-for-1 in the late game with Find. And then probably just want Contempts to answer potential creatures from the opponent. Question is it better than Chupacabra? The instant speed on Contempt can be useful. It's not like our opponent has any Planeswalkers though. So I guess Chupacabra is just better then. Don't think the 2 life is too relevant. Yeah, I think we'll just keep in all the Chupacabras. And then probably just want a Playcrafter or a Brontodon as our last card. I think we'll go with a Brontodon. Extra answer to Disinformation Campaign. Yeah, this looks okay. We definitely have more tools for the Jeskai control matchups than the blue-black control matchup, but if we can stick some of our Planeswalkers, or if we get to untap with Muldrotha, we can take over the game. Since we've got a lot of measures against Planeswalkers, like Playcrafters and Spyglass, but against a deck that relies on Disinformation Campaign as their card draw engine, we don't have as many tools, but in the main deck we've got plenty of disenchants already, so I think we're okay. This hand's not great, only 2 lands, but we're on the draw, and a 3rd land lets us cast Reaper and Scavenger, so we probably still keep. Alright, so that's a good one. And it's gonna be a Thought Erasure, most likely. They could take away the Zealots, but they might just go for the powerful card here instead. Alright, they go for Vivian. Yeah, it could be that we should just be bringing in all the Brontodons for the matchup. Find Finality. Alright, hopefully we can hit our land drop here. Alright, Rejuvenator, so I'm in a bit of trouble here. Unmoored Ego, alright, what's that gonna name? I guess they could go after Chupacabra. If they have a Doom Whisper they want to protect, which could be a reason to maybe want some Vraska's Contempt to diversify our answers to Doom Whisper. But we still have Vivians and Eldest Reborns and Playcrafters, although I guess we took out most of our Playcrafters. Yeah, not sure what Unmoored Ego is supposed to do in this matchup. Alright, so they went for Vraska, Golgari, Queen. But that did draw us into a land, so that's pretty good for us. Attack for 2. Yeah, Vraska also answers Disinformation Campaign, so we've got plenty of answers there. There's no 5-drop we want to ramp into, which means we probably don't want to be playing Rejuvenator, instead just play Reaper, so if they do wipe the board we get to draw some cards. Also applies a bit more pressure. 4 mana for Phyrexian Scriptures, alright. So Brontodon would also stop that from working. Let's attack for 5. And then we can play Rejuvenator. Find a land, play Evolving Wilds, and then we'll get to draw some cards when our creatures die, which is nice. Alright. Draw 4. So I've got some options for next turn. And it's going to be a Twilight Prophet, that's very beatable. Yeah, our opponent's in trouble here. We can either play Vraska minus, or we can Vivian minus, or we can Chupacabra. Probably want to develop one of our 6-drops here. I think I like being mana efficient and going with Vraska here.
I will be the one to go. You won't be needing that.
And then discard a land. They get to exile the graveyards, which is a little bit annoying with Muldrotha, but not the end of the world. Campaign, sure. Discard another land. So we can start making pirate tokens with Vraska. They could have a Disdainful Stroke up, which could be a reason to go double Deathgorge Scavenger instead here. Although this might also be our opportunity to sneak a 6-drop underneath the counterspell if their counterspell is Sabotage. But I think I'll go with the double Scavenger just to play around Disdainful Stroke. And then we can get rid of some cards in their graveyard, I guess. Gain some life. Opponent has a cast down, sure. Gain 2. And then Scavenger number 2. And given that they use cast down, it's also less likely that they have a sweeper effect here. And then what do we get rid of? Don't know if it matters. I guess we'll go with a campaign. And pass a turn. Alright, let's start by attacking. Get rid of the Scriptures. Hit them for 6, which is a 2-turn clock. And what's our plan here? Only 1 creature in the graveyard. Very likely their opponent has a Sinister Sabotage in hand. So the play could also be just make a pirate do nothing. Or we could just find a single Deathgorge Scavenger as well. Yeah, I think we just make a pirate and do nothing. Make our opponent tap out to answer the board, and then we get to resolve something. No need to run into a pretty obvious counterspell here. And our opponent packs it in, alright. Our grindy game plan, too much for them to handle. Sweet. Alright, got to see the deck in action against a variety of archetypes. Didn't face any hyper-aggressive decks, but that's what all the black sweeper effects are for in the sideboard. Plus we still have all those main deck disenchants if your opponent with their aggro deck relies on an enchantment like Experimental Frenzy to take over the sideboard at games. We've got plenty of built-in answers in our main deck. Plus we could always bring in Brontodons as well as a decent blocker that can also destroy enchantments. So I've got plenty of tools for those matchups. So we're probably going to lose game 1 there and then have a good shot in the sideboard at games. So that's gonna wrap things up for this gameplay video. I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day. I also wanna thank all my patrons for being part of the channel, and you can become a patron yourself today and decide the topic of future videos over at patreon.com/LegenVD.